Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2022 Time Lab. I'm Jordana McGonigal, the CEO of the RECON Network. We are really excited to bring this, our first workshop, to you for the year. And this one is one I'm really excited about. Management of time is something I've always been really interested in. I like to take on a lot of different stuff. So this is something that I have put a lot of work into because I think it's just a fascinating way to look at the experiences of our lives. So as you get started, over in the chat, there is a link. You will want to make sure you download the workbook that goes along with the lab so that you have it to do some of the work exercises that we're going to be doing here. So without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. This lab is really important because it is based on our most valuable asset as humans. This is the asset we can't make more of, you can't buy, you can't negotiate for, and that is time. You are given a specific amount of time. It is the most equitable thing in this world because we all get the same amount of hours in a day, the same amount of minutes, seconds to do things with. And so looking at time is something that is widely important and probably far more important than we give it, because it is the one thing that once you use, it's gone. You can't just get more of it. So in this time lab, we're going to explore a few different things. One, we're going to have an exploration of time. We're going to deep dive into it, how much we have and how we categorize it. We are going to talk about how we spend time. So it's an exercise that examines where you spend your time and why you spend it that way. We're going to look at changing our perspective a little bit, how to modify our own outlook to create space for big goals and life's important things. And then finally, we're going to talk about how we harness time through tools, tricks, different apps that are available to us. So these are all really important things. Really excited to get started. So let's get into it. First, rules of engagement. For this webinar. One, interaction. Even though this is a webinar format, this is an open workshop. So you're free and encouraged to ask questions at any time. If something comes up, just drop it in the chat and I will respond as I can, as is natural within the rest of the program. Downtime. There's a few 5-minute segments. I think there are 3 5-minute segments that allow you to work on specific assignments or make notes. These will be across the board. We've got some cool music playing just to kind of chill you out, let you focus. But during that time, also feel free to post your questions in the chat. But I will not be answering them live. That time is for focus, and so I don't want to draw attention away from that time for the rest of the participants. And then finally, follow up. If you enjoy this workshop or if it helps you in some way, we really want to know. We want to know who's out there using the tools that we have, whether or not they're worthwhile. It takes a lot of time and energy to produce these, so we want to make sure that they are being utilized as we intend. So if you like it, if it did something for you, we'd love to know. Send us a testimonial. You can email us at any time. Go to our website, recon.vet. Send us something through the contact form, or just tag us on any of your social media networks, and we will be able to see that and hopefully through that know which direction we should be going in terms of what kind of content we create and how valuable it is. So let's get into it. First, part 1, what is time? Now, a lot of this is going to seem really goofy off the front end. I know it is, but we're just going to talk about what time is and what it's not. So in any given year, we all have the same amount of time, right? How we spend it may be differently, but we all are given the same amount of time. And that 1 year is equivalent to 12 months. It's also equivalent to 365 days. It's equivalent to 52 weeks or 8,760 hours, or 525,600 minutes. Where are my rent fans out there? And then 31,536,000 seconds. So as you see, time breaks down in different ways. This is something that we can actually capitalize on because we can break down our time management into multiple types of ways. So that's why I wanted to lay this out here, even though it seems a little bit stupid or simple. The reality is we can break time into any given portion of these measurements. So we can say, hey, this job is going to take me 2 hours, or I'm going on vacation for 1 week. And what we're doing is essentially blocking off chunks of time in accordance with these schedules. So that's why I wanted to kind of go into this and have it for you to kind of bounce back to. As we categorize time later, it may come in handy for you. The most important thing, though, is not how time is broken up. It's how we're spending time. This is where there is magic. This is where it is really important. It's in how we spend our time. And we spend time typically in one of 3 categories. So time can be broken into these 3 buckets. One is functional time, things that are necessary. Right? You have invested time. This is stuff that matters, things that are important, things that are future forward. And then you have wasted time, which all of us are guilty of. So there's no shame in it. But these are things that don't matter and they're not necessary. They're not moving you forward. They're not holding you back. They're just kind of spent. So as we look at these things, let's really break these down. In functional time, we have stuff like sleep or commuting to your job or dropping the kids off at school, chores, cooking or eating. All of those things are things that we have to do in most cases. Now, whether or not you have a job is, actually part of the foundational element as to whether that time is functional for you. But if you have to work, then your job is functional. It is necessary for your life to continue as it needs to go. Now, invested time is a little bit different. Invested times are things that matter. Now, while we should also consider these necessary, oftentimes we don't, which is why they have their own separate bucket. But in those categories are things like personal growth, self-care, relationships, and goals. So these are things that they absolutely matter and they should be necessary, but a lot of times get missed or left out because we're spending so much time in what is necessary and functional. And then wasted time could be something like a nap, could be social media, or it could be TV. Now, what's important to know as we look through all of these categories of time is that they are different. What is included in that bucket or in that category can be different for different people. So, for example, I may consider a nap wasted time, but for someone else, it might be self-care. Sometimes social media is considered wasted time. If you go on and you're just droning through page after page and on the continuous hamster wheel of the scroll, that could be considered wasted time. However, if it's part of your job, it may be more functional, maybe task related. If you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to build a network, it may be more invested time. So these are different things that you have to consider as you're looking at the things that occupy your time and the things that occupy your schedule. Everyone's buckets are not filled with the same things. So while everyone needs sleep, and sleep is a very functional type thing, a nap may be considered self-care, and so it is invested time in oneself. So that's the thing that I want you to come away with here, is that these are guidelines. These are buckets for you to put categories in, but how you actually categorize your time, how you actually sort it, is completely up to you based on how you feel about that element of time. So let's move into part 2, how we spend time. Now, based on those same buckets, I want to just kind of explore how we typically spend time. So, functional time, that stuff which is necessary. So, we have work, and under work, we may have work hours, we may have commuting for the job, we have meetings, other things that are related to that. If you work through lunch, you may consider that functional time. Sleep is functional. Everyone has to do it. Now, how long you do it is completely up to you, but everyone has to sleep. That is a functional element of being human. We must have sleep. The other part of functional time is utility time, or what I call utility time. This is the stuff that has to get done, but it doesn't quite fit into any other category. So this is stuff like chores or bills, making and eating meals, hygiene, taking care of yourself. So this is stuff that you really kind of have to do, but it doesn't quite fit in invested time. It is more functional. Now, over in invested time, we have an entirely different category. Let's look at 3 different areas: relationships, goals, and self-care. So relationships can be with friends, they can be with your family, your spouse or your partner, kids. It could be a date night, or it could even be going to a recital. So these are things that are building the relationships in your lives, but they aren't necessarily just one-on-one time. It could be taking a hike with your family. It could be going to the Little League game. The point is that you're present for those relationships. And so within those relationships, you have different ways of spending time in order to invest in them and to grow those relationships. Now, at a different level, relationships could be, hey, just reconnecting with people for coffee, or reaching out on LinkedIn. Hey, I've been thinking about you lately. I hope everything's going okay. Those are also relationship and investment building, because you are investing time in another person and in a relationship between the two of you. So all of those kind of things can be categorized as invested time. Then we look at goals. So goals are either future building, so future forward. I want my life to look like X. And so in order to do that, I need to do A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, etc. So those things, not just the large goal itself, but the things that build up to it, that actually create the movement within the goal, are also considered invested time, because you are invested in getting that goal accomplished for whatever reason that it matters. The other part of this is growth. So personal growth. This could be stuff like reading a business book, or simply adding to your exercise routine, right? So you could consider exercise functional, or you could consider it invested. If you have a major goal, I want to run a marathon next year, it could be that that exercise is a function, or is an invested element into your goal of being able to run the marathon. So again, we have that categorization of time and the different ways that it can be sorted. And then finally, we have self-care. If you've ever heard the proverb, you can't pour from an empty pitcher, this is so true. You have got to you've got to take care of yourself and fill your own pitcher before you can invest in those goals, before you can invest in relationships, sometimes before we can even manage to be really efficient at work or get a lot of stuff done. So self-care is a really, it seems minor, but it's a really foundational element of who and what we are. So that is another part of invested time that you really need to consider. Don't just throw it by the sidelines. Make sure you are taking time and making time for self-care in one way or another. That could look a million different ways. For some people, it is getting your nails done or taking a long bubble bath. For others, it is cleaning out your car and taking care of stuff around you that surrounds you. It could be something like going on a hike by yourself. It could be reading a book that you've always wanted to read, or watching a movie, or going to the movies. Self-care could be any kind of things, because based on your personality, it may be different for you than it is for someone in how you invest time in yourself. So these are the categories that I want you to keep in mind as we work through the rest of this stuff. Definitely make sure that you're considering these things as we kind of go through some of the next steps. Now, I want to explore a thing called the time crunch, right? So the time crunch is what I call the quick loss of time. And that sounds really sad and really, really kind of downer. But the reality is we all have really limited time. We can't just create more. And so we really have to evaluate how much time we have and where we're spending it. So I want to look at this for a second. So all of us are given 168 hours a week. And I'm going with a week because it's kind of easy to do those numbers, right? So in a week, in any given week, you're probably going to spend about 45 hours at work. Now, whether that's work plus your lunch or work plus your commute, you're spending 45 to 50 hours in a work sequence, right? In addition to that, you're probably getting about 49 hours of sleep. Now, some of y'all out there are going to say, I sleep way less than that. Well, good for you. I can't. I sleep more than that because I have got to function. But the average amount of time that most people sleep is about 7 hours. So we're going to take that and run with that here. 49 hours of sleep. And then let's estimate about 32 hours of utility type work. Again, that's that functional work in the utility column. That's maybe 15 meals preparing and eating. Maybe that's 7 hygiene hours. And that's everything from going to the bathroom to taking a shower to getting your hair cut. So there's all of those different things. Let's say 3 hours are spent in exercise. And again, that could be considered self-care or invested time. But let's just say that for utility purposes, we're going to do what we're recommended to do and spend 3 hours in exercise. And then let's say 7 hours in chores. So we've got whether we're mowing the lawn, cleaning the kitchen, loading the dishwasher, or just paying the bills, running the kids back and forth. So we've got about 32 hours of utility time. Now, there are many, many of us that spend far more utility time than this. I have 3 kids. I have 3 businesses. So I spend a lot of time in utility. But that's okay as long as we're keeping an eye on it. But if we're just taking this scenario, 45 hours of work, 49 hours of sleep, and 32 hours of utility, these are the most basic, I'm alive and functioning hours being used. What that means is that you're spending about 126 hours here already. Okay. And what that means is that 75% of your time is already accounted for in the most basic fundamental living. Okay. So if 75% of your time is accounted for in this basic living scenario, what that also means is that it's 75% of your time with no investment. There is no payoff. This is functional living. This is, I'm getting up, I'm getting dressed, I'm taking a shower, and I'm going to work, and I'm eating. And that's it. So this becomes the challenge in that 75% of our lives are spoken for just by the functionality of staying alive, staying clean, and staying healthy, right? So this part is the time crunch. We're looking at 25% of our time at best, because again, remember, A lot of us are going to have a lot more utility time. Some of us may have longer work hours or longer commutes here, but generally 25% of our time is what we're looking to use in order to take care of ourselves, in order to build relationships, and in order to reach the big goals that we all have for ourselves personally. And that's sad, but it's also a good motivator in that you can't waste time. Time is super, super easy to waste. And when you actually get through it, what do you have left behind? If all that you have left behind is the fact that you lived, have you really lived? So, what I want to look at next is an exercise. Okay, so we're going to take a 5-minute break here. I've got some cool music. It's binaural music. If you're familiar with that, it basically helps trick your brain into focusing. So we're going to have that with a little bit of countdown. But what this exercise is a month in review. So what I want you to do is take your last month's calendar or planner. Go ahead, pull it up on your computer. If you use, I have, iCal. So if you use that, go back, see what has been on your agenda. Doctor's appointments, work appointments, meetings, date nights, all of those things. I want you to grab your calendar and look at how you use your time, how it's actually noted. And then categorize your time spent. Now, some of this stuff is not going to be on your calendar. I doubt many of you have a block of time marked out on your planner from, 11 at night to 6 in the morning saying, sleep, as if you have to remind yourself. Now, there have been times when I have had to remind myself at 11, alarm, go to bed, stop watching TV, stop doing this, whatever. But you probably don't have that marked out. Similar to work hours in general. You don't have that marked out. You probably don't have your commute marked out. So what you're going to have to do is spend a few minutes just kind of figuring out about how much time you are using in each of these scenarios. Okay, how much utility, how much functional time are you using? How much utility time are you using? How much are you getting in sleep? How much, if any, are you investing in yourself or in your relationships or your goals? So I want you to go through that 5 minutes. Just think through, look at your calendar for guidance, and categorize whether or not something was functional, invested, or wasted time. The second thing that I want you to do is, as you're evaluating these things in your lives, especially special situations, right? Lunch with mom, a meeting with this person over here, time on a hike. I want you to evaluate whether or not that event made you happy or sad, whether or not it energized you or whether it drained you. And this will come into play a little bit later, but what we're wanting to do is look back. If hikes make you miserable and you're miserable the rest of the day, why are you doing them? Now, it may be that as I do, I go on hikes with my husband because he likes them and because it's part of my investment into our relationships. But there is nothing worse for me than hauling it up a hill just to get to the top of a hill. Now, I get it. Pretty views, yada, 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 exercise, fresh air. That's all well and good. I would much rather be in the gym. So this is the kind of thing that you want to evaluate as you're making these time investments as well, because if you know that something is going to be draining, you're going to want to have that in mind before, as you're scheduling it, before you're going into it, so that you can arrange your day adequately afterwards. If you know that networking is necessary, but also is draining for you, don't go schedule a date night or time with your kids right after you've done networking, because you're going to be a shell of yourself. You're going to be like, oh, I hate that so much. I'm so miserable. I just want to go to bed. And then it just creates terrible date night, or kids are like, well, what's wrong with dad? Whatever. So what we want to do is make those two categorizations, where you're spending your time and how your time is making you feel when you spend it there. I want to quick jump over to the workbook real quick and show you one quick thing. A few pages in, the exercise is in there. So you're going to find this page, a month in review. And as you're making these notes, how did you spend most of your time? Where did you spend it? How many hours you spent, and whether it was functional. And then continued on the next page, how many hours you spent in invested time as well. So we're going to go through that now. I'm going to put on the timer. So as you go through this, if you have any questions, again, this is the time you can throw them in the chat box if you like. But I won't be answering them in the live. I will be answering them in the chat just so there's no distraction. All right. All right. So you've got your job in front of you. Let's get started. Okay, so we're back. If you managed to fall asleep because you were so zen during those 5 minutes, I apologize. Those 5 minutes go pretty fast though. So it is, like I said, that's binaural music. It's designed to basically trick your brain into high focus very, very quickly, which is why we do this so that we don't spend all day in exercise mode. While we were doing this, we had a really good question come in terms of whether something should be considered an investment or functional in terms of a category. And the good way to look at that is something going to have a payoff down the road? Like, are you investing something, not getting anything out of it, or are you investing something with a payoff down the road? So when you take a shower, you're getting clean, sure, but you're not getting anything other than the fact that you're clean. When you are going to work out, it may be considered more investment time because eventually it's going to pay off. You're going to either lose weight or whatever. If that's a goal for you. Now, if that's not a goal for you, then that might just be functional time. I'm just trying to stay healthy here, you know? So those are good ways to kind of figure out how you're categorizing some things. So definitely keep that in mind as you're moving forward. And we will get into this next section. So part of what we want to do with time as we're looking towards, okay, we know how to categorize time now. We have a little bit of an inclination as to how we spend time. But what we want to do is figure out how to manage our time so that we're spending it really, really effectively. And so that we're getting the things done that we want to get done, not just living, right? So what we need in order to do this is a new perspective, okay? So the new perspective is more of, what do you want your days to look like? Okay, so we know that we have to have utility time. We know that we've got to pay the bills. We know that we have to take a shower. We know that we have to sleep. We know that we have to eat. And in order to eat, that we have to make food. Okay, so we know that there are things that we have to do. But what is there that you want to do more of? And what do you want to do less of? And where will you invest your time? So these are all things that as you are working through that last 5 minutes, and I know, I'm sorry, 5 minutes is not a long time. So you may have to kind of go back and rework on this on your own time afterwards. But generally, what we're looking at when we were doing that categorization exercise is, what are the things that energize you? What makes you happy? And what do you want to do more of? And you may say, you know what? I never knew it, but I really love being around other people. And I love, love, love networking. And when I leave, I feel like I could just conquer the world, and I have so much energy, and I go home and I clean the kitchen, da, da, da. And so it's this domino effect of energy and time and resources, right? On the other hand, you may say, you know, I don't ever want to mow the lawn in my life again. I don't. It's not worth my time. It makes me so miserable. There's bugs, there's X, Y, or Z. It's just not my thing. And so that may be something you want to spend less time in. And what that may mean is that it is a worthy financial investment for you, your mental health and your happiness and your time, to outsource it, to say, hey, dude, mow my lawn. Hey, kid down the street, come do the lawn for $40 a week or every other week. And I don't have to do that. And so it's not blocking up my calendar. And I am getting a chance to replace that with something that does make me happy, that does further my goals or does increase my relationships, right? So that $40 a week isn't just financial anymore. When you start looking at it that way, it's also an investment in you. So that $40 is not just, hey, a check for 40 bucks. It is, no, because I paid that 40 bucks. Not only did I not have to do something that I hate, but also I got to spend time doing something that I love. I got to spend time with my kids. I got to do whatever. So there is a time exchange, there's a financial exchange to a lot of things, but there's also a time and a mental well-being exchange that goes along with some of this. So this next exercise is based on time ideals, right? So you've evaluated your past calendar. Next, we're going to take a few minutes and create a master list of where you want to spend your time in the future. And so that is here. We did a little bit of a skip that I will go back to after this exercise. I apologize for that. I got something out of order here. But basically, you're looking at the time ideals. What do you want to do more of? What do you want to do less of? And how do you want to invest your time? Now here, you're going to list 3 to 5 things in each category that you want to do. So goals, now this is not a big, hairy, audacious goal. This is not that. So this is not where you say, I want to, in another year, run a marathon. This would be, okay, if I'm going to run a marathon, what are bite-sized chunks? What are day-sized chunks? What are things that I can do that will forward me to that goal? So if you've ever attended our goal setting lab, which we do in December, we help you walk through that and break it down from the big, hairy, audacious goal down to the manageable, doable steps, right? We're kind of skipping a lot of that in this workshop because it's a lot of work and we have its own separate workshop. But what you want to do is kind of fast forward, breaking it down to, okay, well, if I want to run a marathon in a year, I guess the best thing for me to do is go run a mile every day, or hit the gym and do some weights, or maybe I need to go find a new protein powder or a new energy supplement. And so that chore, that errand actually becomes an investment into your goal. Okay. Then you want to have invested time in relationships, 3 to 5 ways you can build the relationships around you. Again, these are not big pie in the sky things. These are very tangible, measurable things that you can fit onto your schedule. I am going to take the kids to the park. I am going to schedule, I'm going to make reservations for date night. And I am going to take my mom to brunch because she's been really lonely. Fantastic. Those are great things. And those are things that you can immediately pick up off of this page and drop into your calendar. Okay. And that's the goal. That's where we're headed with this. And then invested time in self-care. How are ways that you want to focus on yourself to take care of yourself? These are going to be different for everyone. And if you're not used to taking care of yourself in that way, if you're not used to actually focusing on self-care, you may be really, really clueless in how to do that. So if that's you, I would recommend you go back to some of the things, that we did in the last exercise. What are the things that energize you? What are the things that kind of drain you? Self-care is absolutely not going to be the stuff that drains you. Self-care absolutely will be stuff that energizes you. Now, that doesn't mean that networking, if you get really energized off of that, is necessarily self-care. But what that may mean is that you are energized by being around other people. So self-care might look like going and joining a new hiking group. I keep coming back to hiking. I'm not quite sure why, but joining a new hiking group and meeting other people and getting to, work with other people. It may be joining a music group, I don't know, drum circle. What do they do around here? I feel like an old person. Like, why? What do kids do these days? And so it might be just getting together with other people and playing music or going to a dance class or something like that. Whatever you are doing in the self care, it's going to be energizing because it's going to be fulfilling who you are as a human being. Okay. So those are the two things that I want you to look at. And then we will come back to the time crunch really quick after that. So take a look in your workbook for this. I'm going to set another 5-minute timer. Hopefully this one doesn't put you guys to sleep very much and you kind of make it through, but just again, take 5 minutes to work on this part of the exercises. All right, you guys, are you still with us? Have you fallen asleep? Hopefully not. Hopefully that music is doing what's intended to do and not just letting y'all knock out, spend a little time on the nap. But before I move ahead, I actually want to go back to the workbook. On the 5th page, there's an exercise called the time crunch. Now, I'm not going to spend another 5 minutes on this piece, but what it would be worth doing is going through, after you've kind of did this categorization type thing, the month in review, really take a look at how your weeks shape up. And so what you're going to look at, how many hours are you sleeping? How many hours are you spending on hygiene, meals, cooking, work, commuting, exercise? This is basically a time budget of essence. And so how much time are you spending in these areas? And then look at how many hours you're spending or would ideally spend and how much time you have left, right? So one way to do this is to go through your functional time, fill that out, calculate it, say, okay, I'm spending however many hours in functional time. And so I have this many hours remaining that I'm going to fill in with invested time. That's a really good way to handle it. The other time is if you're doing a lot of this stuff already, or if you just want a true evaluation of where things stand for you right now, is to just do it all at once and look at what you've got remaining to add to this. You may say, hey, you know what? I need to do a little bit extra exercise. And so after calculating this, it looks like I've got about 10 hours that I could fill. So let me figure out where I'm going to fill that in. Okay. So this is a great exercise. It doesn't take a ton of time. And if you're going back into the previous exercise, the month in review, it's a great way to just kind of piggyback onto that one. I think that's why I put that there. And figure out, where you're spending that time exactly. Okay. So we're going to move forward. We're going to talk about how to make time work for us. Okay. So now we've got a good vision of time and what it is, how it can be categorized. We've got a really good look at our own calendars, how we typically spend time, and how we fill our days. We've got some sort of budget accounting as to what time we have available or where we're spending our time and how much time we are spending. And now we've got some sort of indication based on the ideals back here of what we want to do more of, less of, and where we're going to invest time. Okay, so with all of those things, kind of put those in a big, bag right now and put them to the side, because now we're going to shift a little bit to talking about how we actually can manage time better. So how to make time work for you. There's a few ways to do this. One is by creating routines. Okay. By creating routines, it eliminates the time spent on making decisions, on hemming and hawing over what we should do, and helps streamline your day, which in turn saves you more time. So for example, how many of you with your significant other has this conversation anywhere between 3 and 7 times a week? What do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want to eat? Oh, I don't know. Whatever you want. Well, I don't really want anything. Where could we go? Where have we not been? And then it turns into, no kidding, a 20-minute diatribe on where we're going to just go find sustenance to keep us alive until tomorrow. It's ridiculous, and everyone that I know does it. Why do we do it? I don't know. Maybe it's part of the human experience. Maybe that's just one of the things that we get to experience by being put on this earth. Somehow I don't think other places across the world have to deal with that. But in our society, in our world, as blessed as we are, many of us have to do that. So that is one example of how decision making can suck up a lot of your time. If you're constantly thinking of, okay, well, do I need to do this next or do I need to do this next? I don't know. I mean, I could argue the merits of doing either one, but blah. Don't argue, just decide, right? And routines are ways that you decide in advance. Okay. So pre-scheduling, you're deciding in advance. Routines are habits. I go to the gym every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:30 because it is a routine. I drop the kids off at school. The gym is on the way out of the school circle. I stop in. I've already eaten. I've already, loaded up with protein. I go and I do my workout, and then I leave and I come home and do the rest of the day. So that is a routine. I don't have to hem and haw if I'm going to go to the gym or not. I don't have to feel bad because I meant to go later and then I never did. I don't have to worry about the guilt that's going to come with that later. I don't have to figure, oh, well, am I going to do the gym or am I going to do yoga at home? What am I going to do? No, it's set. It's a routine. It's a habit. And so it just happens. And that streamlines a lot of those mornings because I have a routine that has to go around that in order to make that happen. I have to get up. I have to get the kids ready. I have to protein load, which means I either have to make, some sort of egg or, I have apple sausage that I love. So I have to get up and prepare that food. And then I have to eat that before I head out the door because I don't want to eat and then run into the gym. So there's all of these things that kind of go along with it. But once you start packaging these things up, time becomes really, really manageable. And so you are able to create routines that streamline your entire day because you've already done the work of making the decisions and making the plans. The second thing, or the second way to make time work for you, is to make your goals clear, right? So how many of us have had goals that we really, really wanted to do? Deep down inside, I really want to be able to run a marathon. I don't personally, but maybe you do. But deep down, I have this goal that I really want to accomplish. But over the year, I don't make it visible. It's there. It's something that I want to do, but it's not something I put a whole lot of effort into or thought. And I don't block out time on my calendar in order to put in the time or the effort or the thought. And so before you know it, another year has passed and it's another year that I can't run a marathon because I haven't put any effort, any initiative, any motivation behind it. Right. So how many of us live that life? How many of us will, if I could just do this, I would be so much a better person. Or if I could do this, I would feel so accomplished. The only way to do that is by making the space in your life to accomplish the big goals and by keeping them visible so that that space continues to show up, right? And I say show up as if it magically appears. It doesn't. You or I have to make intentionally and consciously the space for those goals. So that is another way to make time work for you. The third way is an actual tool that I love to use because it gives you a very clear idea of the gaps of time that you have and where they're spent. And it's called time blocking. Okay. So we've already prepared for time blocking up to this stage. We know how much time we're spending in different areas. We've evaluated how much time we spend sleeping and when we eat and all that kind of stuff. So time blocking is just a process that allows you to see that in real life. You have an example of it over here on the left in that picture. It shows a calendar and blocks of time that are already indicated. Now, the real way that this works out is in real life, you're going to have your time block, your day for each day. And you're going to say, all right, well, every day I have to be at work at 10 and I go until 6. Okay, perfect. Except on Fridays and I only work until 2, 10 to 2. Perfect. So those are going to be blocked off as work. But you have the commute prior to that, and your commute is about 30 minutes, but also traffic and also getting in the car and all that kind of stuff. So we're just going to block an hour for commute. That may be a little extra time, more than you need. but it is blocked out so you know it's not really usable for much else. Okay. We've got chores and bills on Saturday. That's when I do the grocery shopping. That's when I pay the bills. That's when I clean the house, et cetera, et cetera. But Sunday, man, oh, I get to sleep in. I get to sleep in a few hours. So I'm going to sleep in till 9. And then I have some DIY projects that I've made continuous space for. So this has become more functional. So in the afternoon on Sunday, I do some DIY. And then I've got a few workouts planned and a hike. I've got date night. I've got lunch with the kids and brunch with mom, as we mentioned. So this is how we time block. Now, with this setup, when I go, okay, I need to make room for goal setting. Okay, let's say that I'm going back to get my master's. Okay, so I've got schoolwork that I have to do. Well, master's is a big goal. This will be invested time. And so that invested time has to go somewhere. I need about 2 hours that I can really just focus, whether it's going to the library, whether it's going into an office at the house, wherever it is. This is time that I have dedicated to say that this is study time. This is not going to be mom's answering questions. This is not going to be, hey, can you run a quick errand for me? No, this is time that is blocked off as mine. This is my investment into myself and into my future. Well, there's only a few places that I could put that if I'm looking at this type of calendar. And that's Sunday morning after I wake up or Friday before date night. Okay. So I've got a few 2-hour blocks I could throw that in. But here's the thing. I love the fact that I'm achieving this goal, but after study time, I feel completely busted. I am tired. My brain doesn't want to work anymore because it's been pushing really hard for 2 hours. So after that, I'm just not really the best person I can be. So with that in mind, which of those areas is going to be best for what I have to do afterwards? Okay, so following that, I have lunch with the kids or I have date night. The reality is that, oh, yep. Yeah, so Sunday, Lorraine says Sunday. Absolutely. So Sunday is probably going to be the best just because if I go into date night as a shell of myself, there's going to be other ramifications, right? What's wrong with you? Why are you like this? Da, da, da. Whereas lunch with the kids, they're going to be preoccupied. They're going to be eating lunch. I have kind of a break in between that. So if I can wake up, get right into the focus for school, then have a little bit of break and then go to lunch with my kids, that might be the ideal situation. That's a great way to put it. But without this layout, without this time blocking mechanism, how would you even know? What you do instead is you fly by the seat of your pants. Oh gosh, I haven't studied at all this week and that test is on Tuesday. Oh my gosh, I'm at the end of the line. I guess I'll stay up late and I'll study tonight. Okay, well, cool. Well, the ramifications of that are that you then interrupt your sleep schedule. So you're tired the next day, so you skip your workout. And you go into work, you're not really doing 100%. So you get less accomplished at work, which means your to-do list piles up. And then, oh gosh, well, you have to work late Friday because you didn't get everything done. Now, that may seem a bit extreme, but that's the reality of how many of us live our lives day to day. It's a constant, ongoing struggle to keep moving at the direction that we say. You know, we put these plans in place, and then they start running into each other. They start kind of going all over the place. So instead, by using this time blocking mechanism, it's a way for us to very easily dedicate time to the things that are important. So we're going to create a time map, but the thing that I want to walk through, and this is in your workbook, as you're doing the time map, there's a very specific, very specific way that I want you to approach this in terms of order. Okay, so we're going to first look at routines. So what are the routines that you have in place? The things that have to happen because they are habitual at this point, okay? Then we're going to look at functional time. Okay, so your routine in this circumstance, while it is functional time, it will also be considered a routine if you go to work from 9 to 5 every day. So your routines are how late you sleep till, when you take your showers, if that's kind of on a very consistent pattern, what time you go to work, when you're commuting, those things that happen week to week without you thinking. It's time for this. Oh, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. It's time for me to be at work. And then you're going to put in your functional time. So the things you have to do. I know I have to go grocery shopping this week. I know I've got to pay the bills this week. I know I have to get in some exercise this week. So then step number 2 is that you are going to put in your functional time. The things that you know you must do and when you will do them. We're not just saying I'm going to spend this many hours. We are going into the calendar that you'll see here in your workbook. And we're going into the calendar and we're actually saying, no, I'm blocking off this time. I'm saying that from this time to this time, this is what I'm going to be doing. Now, the trick is after this to not just have written it down, but to also be able to implement it, which is a whole different ballgame. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to put in our routines, we're going to put in our functional time, and then we're going to go back to these time ideals, these other 2 pages, and we're going to say, this is the invested time that I'm going to spend moving my goals forward, creating relationships, building relationships, and taking care of myself. Okay, so I would say at least one thing from each of these invested time ideals. You made a list of 3 to 5, grab at least one and put it in your calendar. You're scheduling the time. Now that means you're going to have to estimate how much time it's going to take. It means you're going to have to do a little bit of evaluation on what is the best block of time to put this in based on what's draining and what's exciting to you. But these are the exercises that you're going to do in order to create your time map. Okay, so this time map is for the upcoming week. It's Friday today. I'm going to give you the weekend off to really absorb this information and work through your schedules and all that kind of stuff. But on Monday, we're kicking this thing off. So Monday from 12 till 6, you may have this blocked off as sleep. It may be your sleep schedule the entire week. But what we're going to do is kind of go through this. Now, if you have this book printed out, that's fantastic. Just draft it in, take a pencil, erase it, move stuff around. You're going to want to do that. If not, the download that's in the chat is fillable. So you can actually go in and click on a box and put in what you want there. These are 1 hour blocks of time. So if you're going to only spend about 30 minutes, you may want to put multiple things in there. But go ahead and let's start on this process with filling up the time map. Again, I'm going to have another 5-minute timer. Do not go to sleep. Just use this time to focus on your time map. And let's go. All right, guys. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of time to start really working on your time map and really start blocking off the time that you need, not only to just survive, but also to kind of thrive within this life that you've been given, right? That's the whole point. The whole point of all of this is to really capitalize on the time that we have. We all have the same amount of hours in the day. We all have the same amount of time, maybe not on this earth altogether, but in a certain day or week or year. And it's how we work the time that makes us stand out from others. People who invest their time, get further, can become more successful in one way or another than others who don't. It's a simple practice, but the person who sits on TikTok for 8 hours a day just scrolling mindlessly, and the person who spends 1 or 2 hours at the gym, the payoff is much, much greater, for less time. So, keeping that in mind, all of this is for that singular purpose of ensuring that we are spending our time wisely and also creating a life that's worth living. So finally, our last part, we're going to talk about how to harness time. Okay, so we've talked about all these different, like how many ways can you beat the concept of time to death, Jordana? Well, one more, at least one more. So we're going to talk about how to harness time. So these are 3 tips that you can use as you're going through your day-to-day. Now, granted, I want you to keep in mind that all of the work you've done to this point is completely pointless. It will be wasted time unless you implement it. Okay, so you can put it in your wasted bucket, or you could put it in your investment bucket. Either way, the choice is up to you. But investment means that you are going to then have to next week stick to that schedule, right? So if you said the only time that I have to fill my goals is 8 o'clock in the mornings, Monday through Friday, well, guess what you're doing at 8 o'clock Monday through Friday? Not sleeping in, not watching TV. No, you are going to be capitalizing on that time plan. And I promise you, within a week or 2 of doing this, you will feel so much better because you will feel accomplished. There's a human element of accomplishment that comes when you actually take advantage of the life you've been given. Okay, so getting into that mindset of creating, making your time work for you is great. Make the schedule and then stick to it. But once you have made that schedule, it comes into this first tip is make a plan, right? So if it's the weekly time blocking, or one thing that I do that I love and I will never give up until the day I die, is Sunday nights, right before I kind of shut everything down and go to bed, I spend an hour looking at the week ahead of me. What do I have to do? Who am I meeting this week? What does it look like? Now, granted, I'm a little bit further ahead in this process. I've been time blocking for a very, very long time. So I naturally do that within my schedule. But I do look at that schedule and say, okay, where are my gaps in time? What are the things that I need to accomplish? And I actually make lists. Okay, so this is making a plan. I make lists of things that have to be done. Now, I'm a hyper organized person. Some people are not. It may just not be in your DNA to do this, but I make a list so that when I wake up in the morning and I have that time to get to work, or I have that time dedicated, I know exactly what I'm doing. Again, we're going back to that routine thing, the not thinking thing. Do all the thinking while you're focused at one point, and then create the patterns and processes so that you don't have to think about it again. Okay, so time management tip number 1, make a plan. Whether you're writing out your schedule, making a list, time blocking, whatever that is, make the plan. Okay, so that's the first step, is making the plan. Now, there's a number of apps and tools that you can use that will help you through that. One of my favorite ones is Things 3. It's an online app. I have it on my desktop. I have it on my phone. It's a giant list, but you can categorize your list by work or home or this job or personal stuff or kids stuff. And you can slot it for different days. And so on that day, you pull it up and there's your list ready for you. You don't have to think about it. ClickUp is a project management tool similar to Trello or Asana. If you are a visual thinker and you like having something that you can move from one box to another, that may be a really good thing for you. It's a little bit more intense. So depending on how much effort you want to put into your planning situation is how you're going to make these things work for you. Centered is another incredible app. I just recently found it, but it actually takes your list, and as you move stuff into your focus, you move stuff into a focus block, and then when you're ready to focus, you actually hit play, and it shuts everything else on your computer down. It shuts all the other stuff around, and it also plays binaural music. So if you're not a big fan of that, maybe that it wouldn't be for you. But it does have that, and it allows you just to focus on what is in front of you. It's a great way to do it, or just paper and pen. Make your own little list. Make your own plan for the week. Use the workbook page here that you can kind of go back on, make copies of, fill out as much as you want, but make that plan so that you can stick to it. The other thing you're going to do is watch time. So tip number 2 is to watch time. If you've created estimates for your time, how long it'll take to do something, keep track of how long it actually takes. It'll help you plan in the future and evaluate your past. The other part of this is as you are watching time, the other thing that you want to do, there's a tool, and I didn't put it down here, but I should have, called Pomodoro. It's the Pomodoro method, really. And the way that it is it's set time of focus and it's set time of release. And so what you do is, I think usually it's 25 minutes and 5 minutes. So for 25 minutes, you are going to focus on whatever it is you have to do. And then 5 minutes after that, or for 5 minutes after that, you can go take a break, walk around, get some water, what have you. And what that does is it actually uses the way that the brain processes information to focus heavy, get a lot accomplished, and then take a break. That break then allows you to refocus and get a lot accomplished. So you're not tiring out your brain. So this is a really, really cool scientifically based method that a lot of people use called Pomodoro. On the tip number 1, Centered actually is based on the Pomodoro plan. So that may be something you want to consider if that's something for you. But there's a bajillion different apps on Pomodoro. Literally just go to the App Store and search Pomodoro, Pomodoro, and you will find a million different apps that you can use that will help kind of set you up for that. But in addition to that is watching the time and really being able to determine how much time things take. So these are other great timekeeping apps. So you have Clockify and Harvest. Those are both just timekeeping apps. You say, hey, I'm about to go study for this amount of time, or I'm going to read chapter 1, and you hit play and it starts timing how much you do it. When you're done, you hit stop and it says, okay, you spent this much time. So it's really, really helpful for evaluating how much time you actually spent on things, which then comes in handy as you're planning for the future. You say, you know what, when I say read a chapter, I thought it only took 30 minutes, but it actually takes more like 90. So then that helps you actually not get backed up in the future because you're planning the exact amount of time that it requires to do something. You can do your calendar same way for this. Just mark down, hey, this is the time that I started this task. This is the time I ended it. Or there's a thing called Time Flip, which is very cool. It's a little piece of tech, looks like a die, a 12-sided die. And on each side of the die, you have stickers that you categorize to different aspects of time or tasks or clients or jobs at work. So you may have chores on one and you may have exercise on another. And as you flip it up and that part is facing up, it starts automatically calculating the time. So if you're someone who doesn't like to keep track of apps, but just likes the idea of flipping something over when you're going to start something new, that's a really cool way to keep track of it as well. And finally, time management tip number 3. Now, this is actually just a process idea, and it's very, very popular in time management and in goal setting. But it's called Eat the Frog. If you haven't heard of this, the concept is if you have to eat the frog, the best time to do it is at the beginning of the day, and you could eat it and get it over with, right? If you have to do something you don't really want to do or something that's going to take a long amount of time, get it over with. Don't have it hanging over you for the rest of the day. I've had such a great day, but now I have to go eat a frog. And of course, this analogy doesn't work. It just occurred to me, if you like eating frogs, I don't know if anybody who does, but it's possible that there's someone out there who does. Still, the concept is the same. The big thing get done first. So take your biggest must-do item and get it done. Schedule it for the first thing of the day. If exercise is my frog. Every single day, exercise is my frog. And so if I don't get it done early, I will dread it forever, or I will simply not do it. And so then that, has all of the ripple effect down the road. But my biggest must-do item is getting exercise, getting an hour done at the gym and getting it done. That's why I schedule it right after I drop off the girls, and I have created a routine that I just hit the gym and I go in. By eating the frog, you get hard things done quickly and make the rest of your day a lot easier. You're also tackling big things when you are at your prime. You're awake, you're functional, you haven't been worn down by the day or had to make a lot of decisions. And so that is the absolute best time to get rid of the big ticket items on your calendar. That is all that I have for today's workshop. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. We're right at an hour and a half, which is good. There wasn't a lot of interaction in the chat. I don't think I missed anybody in there, but we do kind of book 2 hours just in case of that, but we're at an hour and a half. That's a really, really efficient time for all of this information. Hopefully you've had enough time to kind of focus on what you're doing. You've had enough time to really put some thought and effort into where you spend your time, what things are going to make your life worth living, and how to work those into your schedule. The workbook is completely yours. Please take it, use it over and over again, revisit it. Priorities change. So as you go through life, what is investment now may not be investment later. What is self-care now may not be self-care later. So you'll want to make sure that you're really adapting year over year to this. And that's why we do this workshop every year. So we'll have this again next year. Upcoming labs that you'll want to be aware of is the Ikigai lab, which is one of my favorites. The Japanese concept of your reason for being is a direct intersection between your purpose and your career. So when we're talking about how to find purpose at your job, how to really find job fit, those things are based in Ikigai. So this workshop is going to be exploring the concept of Ikigai and actually putting a plan into place that addresses it and allows it to work for you. In September, we've got the Balance Lab. This is another really cool workshop where we talk about life balance. Now, I personally am a huge deterrent of the term work-life balance. It is not about work-life balance. It is about all types of balance. How to ensure that you are doing all things as functionally as you can. You are investing in those relationships. You are taking care of yourself beyond just time. But this is really kind of an investment strategy into the multifaceted spiritually. What are you doing to take care of yourself spiritually? What are you doing to ensure that you're constantly growing? The Balance Lab is a way to ensure that your life wheel, is even and not going flat. So that's another great way to join us in September for that. And then in December, our most popular lab ever, year over year is our goals lab. And it is a workshop where we set goals for the next year in a step-by-step format to increase chances of success. When you go back into the time lab in March, it's always helpful to have been in the goals lab before, because then you have a really concrete idea of what you're trying to accomplish and when. But the goals lab is very popular for kind of closing out a year and starting a new one fresh. So guys, this is the time lab. I hope that it has been helpful for you. I hope that you have gained something out of it. Again, remember, if it's been helpful for you, I would love to hear that. We would love to have those testimonies or response, even just for us to know that, you know, what we're doing out there is used or appreciated. It's really a real big boost to our systems. But even so, we want to make sure that we're creating content and producing content that is valuable to you, and not a waste of time, avoiding that wasted time bucket at all costs. So thank you all for your time here. Thank you for your investment in this workshop and in yourself. I promise it will pay off and have huge dividends. Once you learn how to manage time, it becomes a servant. You are no longer a slave to the minute, but it is a slave to you, and it is there for you to capitalize on and create the absolute life that you want to live. So congratulations on making it this far. Good luck moving it forward, and please, give us feedback. Let us know if you manage to keep it up for the next week or two. We would love to know how that's working out for you. So until then, happy Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. And thank you so much for attending the RECON Network's Time Lab.